Hey, I'm back with you on our 750 Cafe project. While the frame was out for powder coat and all the hardware was out for rezinking, I built the motor. Remember, the motor was the one that was sitting apart for 10 years. And it's re-ringed. The pistons were within spec. Valves, guides, valves, seals, gaskets, everything that it actually needed. And you can see that, or you might be able not be able to see it, but I'll just tell you. The center cases, barrel and head are painted. Honda Cloud Silver. And then all these other cases that you see, which is countershaft, shifter cover, stator, and valve cover, as well as the clutch cover on the other side, they're grained and then left bare metal. I didn't clear over them like Honda did because I find it's easier to keep them clean and maintained if they don't have a clear coat on them. Anytime you interrupt that clear coat, it gets a little corrosion in there, and then pretty soon you have to take all the clear coat off and do the metal refinishing all over again, so I don't do that. If it's a restoration and Honda cleared it, I will clear it. And that leads me to another subject that I'll get to in just a minute or two. But for my motor, for the electrical, I made solid wires from the stator, and they're going to go all the way to the function. See how long these are? And I took the junction out that was behind the countershaft sprocket cover. I didn't want a junction down there because anytime you have a junction in a wire, you have the potential for problems. So I soldered them and then heat shrunk tubing over them, make them a nice solid connection, and then I can make sure that anything that is wrong with the electrical system isn't going to be the wiring between the stator and the stator's function. I also built the carbs while I was waiting for my other things to come back from the other vendors. And they came out pretty nice as well. The engine's actually sitting in an old 750 frame that I cut up, and I'm using it as a stand. Remember, I had two 750s that I started with? Well, there's the frame right here of one of the 750s. Couldn't find a buyer for it, and I thought this was a good thing to use it for, so I cut it up and used it as an engine cradle. Look down here now. I've got all the hardware back from the zinker. You'll notice that even though I have a set of wheels built already for this bike, I've got a set of spokes here with yellow zinc nipples. Well, what happened was when I got so involved in this project and I was having such a good time that I had a KO 750, which is the first year, 1969. I had one of those in my basement as well as a cadaver, and I was just trying to figure out when I was actually going to get to its restoration. Since it's a 1969, it has to be restored. It can't be custom fabricated because it has extraordinary value as the first ever CB750 with the dual overhead cam, or single overhead cam. So it kind of like postponed my cafe a little bit because all this hardware is for two 750s, not just one. And I'll show you the progress of the KO after I'm done with this build for the cafe. I've got over here, we're going to walk over. And here is the frame, powder coated. All the finish welding has been done. And you can see that I put the tail on and the battery box on because I had to make a bracket to hold the seat down, and the bracket's right here. And so since I had a couple days to play around, I actually made that little bracket that where the seat would with a little fork scoop underneath a nut and a spacer to hold the front of it down, and then the back is bolted to this sub fender like we talked about previously. So this is some of the powder coating, and then this over here are the boxes of the parts that I'm actually going to install. Plus I have parts laying on racks against the wall over there, and it's only going to take me a day or two to assemble this 750 Honda. I have done all the body work, and it's primed and ready for paint on the tank, side covers, tail, and headlight bucket. And so I'm anxious to get all this started. I've got all the hardware, so I'm going to go ahead and do that starting right now. And about a day or two, maybe 2 days, I'll get back to you and show you the progress. But I expect to have a rolling chassis in just a few hours of work. I'll be back with you in a minute. A minute, hour, day, whatever. Well, here's a little heads up for you. This is how I do this. It's so easy to scratch the frame when you're putting the motor in. Even if you have many people and you try to protect the frame with either towels or tape or pads of any kind, it's still, the motors are heavy and they're hard to maneuver to get in the frame, then drop them into its proper position so you can put the bolts in. And I do most of this stuff by myself. I rarely have any help. But even if I did have help, I would still put a 750 engine in the frame just like this. I remove the points backing plate and the advance mechanism, and that makes the side of the case about flush with the head fins. And then on the clutch cover, I put a wooden block that's about 2 1/4 inches thick. Can you see it down there? And it made the engine kind of level. So now I'm going to take the relatively light frame, which is 30 or 40 pounds, and drop it over the engine, and then put in the 2 lower engine mounting bolts, and then I can just rock the frame back onto its upright position without me scratching anything or hurting my back. Now, of course, this is made so much easier since I cut that top of the frame out. Remember, I made that special saddle for the 750 frame, but I'm doing a KO too, as I mentioned just a little bit ago. And the KO, I'm not cutting the frame. The KO is bone stock, and that's the way I've got to keep it. So this is still the same procedure. It's just easier for a one-man show not to scratch anything or hurt yourself, because, man, these things are heavy, by trying to get the engine in the frame. So what we're doing is we're getting the frame onto the engine. A little bit different attitude. I'll be right back and I'll show you what it looks like when it's upright. So here we are, back with you, and I got to tell you, from the time that I left you last, it was only like maybe 10-15 seconds to position the frame and then put in these 2 lower bolts. I'm going to step over to the front of the frame now. I leave the oil pan off, that way it doesn't interfere with the frame, because it protrudes past the frame, so I don't want that oil pan to get in my way. And now watch. Let me see if I can do this with one hand. Yeah, I can. So now I'm just going to rock the thing back up. And there you go. No scratches on the frame, and I didn't hurt my back, and the engine is in. I'll be back with you in a little bit when I have more stuff to show you.